Hello and welcome to the Practical Animal channel. Do you want to know what it takes to work with animals? Wildlife or domestic? If with wildlife, with free living animals, or with animals in a collection? If domestic, with agricultural animals or companion animals such as dogs and cats? If you want to know what it takes to work with animals, we aim to cover it all. Most weeks I interview an animal industry professional, asking him or her questions such as what are the skills and personal qualities needed to work with the animal that they are concerned with. My guest this week is Dr. Richard Jones. He is a specialist bird of prey vet, and he is here joining us tonight to tell us what it takes to be a specialist bird of prey vet. Richard Jones, thank you very much for appearing on the Practical Animal channel.
Thank you very much. Good to be here.
Richard, please can you tell me, what are the skills, experiences and personal qualities that have been key to your success as a specialist bird of prey vet?
I think, to be honest, I think enthusiasm buys you a lot. I like working with all animals. When I qualified, I started off doing everything: cows, sheep, horses, cats, dogs. But I think birds of prey have always been what I'm interested in. I was a falconer way before I was a vet. So I think, and because of that, I enjoy working with the birds. I work with, and because I spend a lot of time out of work with them, I understand how they're managed, and so I think if you enjoy doing anything, you're going to put more time and effort into it, and get further enjoyment out of it, and get better out of it. I mean, I'd probably be a rubbish horse vet. I've never had a horse. I'm not really, I like them, but I'm not that interested in them. So I wasn't going to spend the time and effort researching the best treatments for a species that I wasn't that enthusiastic about. Whereas without a work, I'll spend, when I'm not working, I'm out with my dogs and falcons anyway. So I think, yeah. So I think enthusiasm's a big one, and I wasn't the cleverest, and I probably wasn't the best cat dog surgeon, but because I wanted to do this aspect of the job, I've put the time and effort into it, and I've got reasonable at it. So I think the enthusiasm, that in whatever aspect you're going into, I think that's a biggie. The other one is, having genuine compassion for your patients as well, because I know what my falcons and dogs mean to me, and so I know what my punters, dogs and birds. Well, I'm only doing birds now, but I know what their birds mean to them, and so you do have that empathy with them. And I think sometimes birds get a bit of a raw deal of it. For some reason they get lumped. Then cats and dogs, understandably, people understand their bond to their owners and vice versa. But equally with the parrots and the falconry birds, that is a lot of work and a serious. But these parrots sometimes have been in families for up to 60 years and handed down from generation to generation. So, and I think birds sometimes they're not taken as seriously as the cats and dogs and the horses, but they have, they mean everything to these people, including myself. So, and I think the biggest thing that I probably wasn't taught in vet school, but is a massive part of the job, is being able to communicate, is able to speak to people, and that's part. When we set up here, I wanted to have no less than a half-hour appointment, because you need to be able to communicate with a concerned owner, and often, even if things aren't going well, as long as everyone's in the loop, things that people get that. People, if you're doing your best based on the most up-to-date knowledge and experience, and you're trying everything you can, as long as, people accept that. But I think if they don't understand what's going on, you can be the best surgeon, medic in the world, but if you're not communicating to the worried owner, it don't mean anything. So I think that actually, over everything, communication is probably the biggest part of this job. So when I did set up on my own, I wasn't going to do anything less than half an hour, because I was doing appointments in less than 10 minutes. You can't do it. So yeah, and I suppose a bit of, I'm quite good with my hands. I've made falconry equipment. I've liked a bit of Meccano when I was a kid, so that translates to bolting bones back together sometimes. But I'm not against. I wasn't the best surgeon in the world, but I've practiced and practiced and practiced, and I've done it a lot of years now. And yeah, I'm half decent through that, I suppose. Yeah, I think that's about. Yeah, I don't want to think of anything else, but that's probably. Yeah, and actually the experience as much as my experience. I mean, as well as my veterinary experience through college and then my jobs, and then doing I did a residency in birds in the States to try and get better at it. But a bigger part, as big a part of that is working with the birds, is my falconry, because that gives you a deep understanding of what they like when they're well. So, yeah. Is that reasonable? Is that enough for you there, John?
That's great. The channel has its roots in falconry, and I don't think my subscribers would forgive me if I didn't ask you, how did you get into the falconry?
I mean, I think it started off with bird watching, probably. We had a really good primary school teacher, and out of, in his own time, he'd take us off bird watching all over the place. And I remember he took us to South Stack Lighthouse in Anglesey. We went to watch the seabirds, but out of nowhere, this peregrine just came tearing across the sky and just stunned a lot of us. And I think that and after witnessing that, I just wanted to see it again and again and again. And so I started watching wild peregrines, basically. And then there was a local fella who had a buzzard, and so I got him to sort of take me about the place, and I sort of, he taught me a bit how to get into it, and then ultimately I flew a kestrel for a bit with a friend. It was his bird, but I was helping him with that, and then ultimately I got my own bird. That was, I suppose, my first bird of my own was a harrisawk, but he came through college with me, and then. Yeah, I've had numerous birds since, but I've currently got a young peregrine that I'm training. I've got an 8-year-old female peregrine, and I've just picked up a little male. So and that's just finished doing his training session now. In fact,
brilliant. Richard, what are the 3 books that have most influenced you, either in falconry or as a specialist bird of prey vet?
I think well, the both. I mean, both. I've got them here. In fact, this was. Where you see that one? That's the Manual of Falconry. And that's by Michael Woodford, and it was one of my first falconry books, and one of the first falconry books that were in the UK. But he was a vet, and actually I got to, because that was my first. But it was. I don't know if you've seen Kes. But it's actually the book that Billy Casper, the star of Kes, uses to train Kes. So I've got a soft spot for it there as well. But it's just a really good book, and I think because I read it so young, it's just become quite, it's a real special book for me. And actually, a few years ago, I got in contact with Mike Woodford, and because he's a vet and a falcon, I thought we had a lot in common, and he was just the nicest bloke on the planet. Invited me down to his house in Dorset. Bought me a pub meal, chatted through his history, and it was just the most generous man in the world. And it was just like meeting one of my heroes, like a football fan meeting Messi. It was just these people are, they mean a lot. And sadly he passed away a couple of years ago, but just a legend. And so I don't know how much that had a part in me becoming a vet as well, but it definitely was obviously seeded something up here, so that's Manual of Falconry. And then the next one, I suppose, it's veterinary aspects of captive birds of prey, and that's by John Cooper. And when I started vet school in 1990, I couldn't believe that there was a textbook just about birds of prey. And that was by John Cooper. And again, I've met him. He's still active. I mean, he's in his 70s and he's still doing conservation work in Africa with gorillas. It's part of the British Falconers Club, and I see him at a lot of the meets still. Just another incredible bloke. And again, so I've met Messi, he's my Ronaldo. So yeah, so that was that one. And again, it's just, I mean, so this was written, I think this came out in 78, but even then, it was becoming a specialism, I suppose. And then the last one is that's the Art of Falconry, and that was written by Emperor Frederick II of Hohenhausen in 1250. And this is a translation, but considering it was written 800 years ago, it's phenomenal. I mean, he was a serious falconer, but some of his observations on wild falcons, wild ducks, but he's got an anatomy chapter in there that isn't far off what we read today, So again, that's worth getting hold of if anyone's interested. But yeah, I think there's a load of them, and there's a load of books that I've got. I mean, I'm a big collector of falconry books, but those three are my top three, I reckon.
Yeah, John Cooper actually has been on this channel. We had an interview with him about 4 months ago. He's a very good speaker.
Oh, brilliant! Yeah, no, unlike me. Yeah, I just sort of go blotchy and quiver, but but John's incredible.
Richard, what is your view of bird medicine as a speciality within the veterinary profession today?
I think over the last decade, we're hot on the heels of the cat and dog boys, to be honest. It's because I've known the importance of birds forever, because I'm as a falconer and a bird keeper, but I think it certainly hasn't been given the attention that, this is what when veterinary medicine started, it was all farm animals. Dogs and cats weren't given a look in. And then the dogs and cats, that took over, because obviously, pets are a massive part of people's lives, especially, there's actually a crisis going on at the moment because there's not enough vets, because it's the number of cats and dogs and, pets in general is doubled since this lockdown thing, and we just literally can't keep up. So, but back to your question, there's a dedicated association of alien veterinarians that have conferences all over the world, or did do. And there's a lot of good work, particularly in America and Germany and the UK. But it's definitely a standalone specialty now. And again, going back to when I was in college, I think we got 1 day in 5 years to cover birds, reptiles, mammals that weren't a cat or a dog, zoo animals, fish. Whereas now, I think certainly in Edinburgh and the Royal College in London, there's dedicated exotic animals, so that's your birds and your reptiles, courses. So there's a lot, and then there's residencies about. There's in Swindon, Great Western Exotics in Swindon, they do an exotic residency. Whereas for me to go and do, in college, I'm at the end, in the final year, you're supposed to focus on a topic, and I wanted to do birds, but it wasn't an option. But I asked them why not, and they couldn't give me a good enough reason. So I created a bird course, and with the help of Neil Forbes, I did my elective down there. And then I had to actually, to get my bird masters and residency program, I had to emigrate for 4 years. So I went to Minnesota for 4 years to get the book, because at that point in time, there wasn't anywhere in the UK that would do it. Whereas now, there's programs all over Europe. So it's definitely being taken, rightly so, has been taken more seriously.
How do you see bird veterinary practice changing over the next 20 years, Richard?
I think it's got to grow. I was looking at some statistics, and apparently and this is current, so since the lockdown thing, I think there's about 12 million dogs, 12 million cats, but there's over 3 million birds, and there certainly isn't, what's that maths, hang on, 8 to 1. So there certainly isn't one vet per 8 cat dog vets. When you're looking at that, so we're talking, and this isn't commercial poultry, so the birds the birds I deal with are pets, basically. I'm calling falconry birds pets, parrots, a lot of backyard waterfowl and chickens, ducks, but not the commercial poultry industry. So those figures, that 3 million is your companion birds, really. So you know, like I said, there's an increase in demand for it. And actually, recently we've because we're a tiny one-man band, we've had to close our books to new clients. We're taking on local clients, but we're literally saturated. So and that's so yes, it's got to go. They've got to train more bird vets because the demand's there. You know, between the falconers, actually all aspects, falconry parrots. I think the backyard poultry is a big growing, a lot more. Certainly in lockdown, a lot of people have taken them on. So yeah, it's got it has to it has to grow because the demand's there.
Richard, what advice can you give somebody who wants to become a bird of prey vet?
I think mainly don't do it for the money. Do it. Basically, it is a lifestyle choice. I mean, I'll be honest, the reason I do what I do is because I can come and work for myself. I can come to work, I can bring my dogs, I can bring my falcons, I can organise my surgery around the falconry season sometimes, because, you know, I literally can't imagine. I can't remember a time when falconry wasn't a big, massive part of my life. So I've sort of, the reason I've done what I've done is almost try to enable me to make work around my falconry, and that's what's done. I've sort of accepted I don't want to be a millionaire, but as long as I can fly my birds and do what I want to do and enjoy it, you know, I like coming to. And that's one of the reasons we stopped taking new clients, because I like having half an hour. I mean, my bird clients are anything from, you know, millionaire Arabs to, you know, footballers to bakers. You know, there is no stereotype bird keeper, you know, and they're all, I have to be honest, probably most of the half an hour is me nattering, trying to, you know, just, you know, they're really interesting people, and I like doing it. I like, and I think what I didn't want to do was get to the point where I didn't like doing it anymore. And so, you know, I think you've got to give yourself, I think if you get to the point where you don't like doing it, you need to do something about it. And so yeah, so I still like coming to work. Saying that, it's not perfect. There's a few things I want to change. The main one is the on-call, because there isn't that many people. Well, there's more now, actually. It's getting there and it's getting a lot easier, but I do a lot of on-call, and that's quite tight, even though I like doing the, you know, I love dealing with the patients I deal with. But if you're on call for sort of, you know, it's up to this year, I was probably on call for 80-90% of my life, you know, so that has an impact. That does have an impact. So that's one thing we are gradually changing. There's a lot of up and coming bird vets who I'm lucky to have helping me out. So so that's so I think the negatives. There's a lot of positives. The negatives are from my point of view, are the young. So you've got to be prepared to deal with that. So if you don't, a lifestyle choice and not a money making thing, basically. But yeah, if the advice to do it is, I mean, if you're really with any of the veterinary jobs, I think it's really important to get a real grasp of how the particular species you're dealing with is managed when they're well. You know, because so many of the problems I see in birds, granted they might need some drugs or surgery or whatever, but the roots of it, for example, a foot problem, you know, if they come in with an infected foot, granted it needs addressing and treating the foot with, you know, antibiotics and dressing and sometimes surgery. But the reason that foot problems happen is often because the perching isn't ideal, the nutrition might not be ideal, the bird's behaving, you know, there might be an issue in its aviary. Sometimes it can be for 5-10 minutes of the day. So it's knowing how they are managed and what they're supposed to be fed and understanding how they work is critical to what we do. You can't deal with a sick one unless you know what a healthy one's like and how they're managed. So I'd spend a lot of time pestering falconers or parrot breeders, or just to find out how these things are managed. And then the veterinary stuff, you can, that comes later, because that's just the icing on the cake. Really, the bulk of it is an understanding of the species that you're dealing with, which is why I would like to be a rubbish horse vet.
Richard, I've got to ask, what's your most treasured possession in your hawking bag?
It's a tricky one, because I lose stuff all the time, and I've left hoods on moors, and I've left a dog lead at a friend's yesterday. I leave stuff all over the place. So the important stuff I don't generally put in my hawking bag, but I think probably most of it. It's a good question that I thought about it. I think for every bird that I've flown, going back 30 odd years, I've kept, when they've passed on, or I have kept a feather from them. So I've got a feather, I've got a feather from my Harris hawk that came to college with me, and it just looks the same as it did the day I was flying him in, when I was flying in the early 90s. So yeah, I like that feather collection is quite important to me.
Richard, what's your best bird of prey fact, please?
I've got two. I'm going to give you two. I'm going to start. Number one is that I don't know if you have I've got a picture here. Google a Peregrine falcon's nostrils, because what you'll see is in the middle of the nostril is a little conical structure, which is a little baffle in there. And that actually, when they were developing jet engines, once jets went supersonic, they'd go into a situation called choke, where the air, once you hit a certain velocity, the air wouldn't be taken into the jet engine. It would there'd almost like a wall of air would build up, and it wouldn't get taken into the jet, so it would fail. So what they did was they looked at other supersonic animals, and Peregrine's not quite supersonic, not far off, and wondered, right, how does that Peregrine doing 250 mile an hour when it's stooping? Why doesn't that happen to it? And how does it manage? And how does it allow air to go into its nostrils? And basically the answer is this little baffle that's in there. It smooths out the airflow and allows the bird to breathe even when they're doing 250 mile an hour. So they stuck one of them on a jet engine, and that did the same.
Oh, fantastic.
That's a good one, that, isn't it?
It is a fantastic one, that.
The second one, I don't know if you can you see this kettle from where you are? Right. Can you see that feather?
Yes.
Right. So this is a falconry. The reason I'm showing you this is because I've had vet students from all over the place here, and I can show them all sorts of surgery and pictures and all sorts, but this seems to be the most impressive thing. And it's what falconers used to use to repair the feathers. So I don't know if you can see that feather.
Yes.
I'm going to smash it up. So this bird's been in a real nasty incident and smushed its feather.
Yes.
So what you do is, very carefully, you take it home in its hood, and can you still see the kettle? You might move it forward a bit. You get a little jet of steam, feather still smushed. And once you got it steaming, ta-da!
Hey, presto. I love it.
Feather repair. That's
fantastic.
Those are me facts.
Richard, for somebody who wanted to get into falconry, what 4 birds of prey species would you suggest?
I think by far the Harris hawk, I think, is an excellent choice. I think that would be for starting falconry. The reason being, is because, well, when I had him, I made all sorts of mistakes with my Harris hawk. But because they're the bigger the bird, within reason, don't start with an eagle. The bigger the bird, the more margin you have for error, basically. They're a more robust bird. I mean, some of the, like the sparrowhawks and the little birds, we're talking, a sparrowhawk's an 8-ounce bird, 250 grams. And they're quite a nervy bird. They're quite a delicate bird. Which the Harris hawk it's a robust bird. They're about one of the only birds of prey. They're the only bird of prey that's a social animal. So they actually, in the wild, they hunt in packs with their family members. They actually lend themselves perfectly to falconry because they actually treat you like a hunting partner. I mean, my male that I had in college, he'd sort of gesture to me. I'd run around in the bushes trying to flush rabbits, and then he'd come down and catch him. But he would literally direct me. He knew where stuff was, and he would point at stuff. So that you do get quite a close bond with the Harris hawk. So and also the training is quite forgiving. But they're actually, when they're trained well and they're hunted and they're given a lot of opportunity to fly and get fit, they're a spectacular hunting bird. So I think a lot of the problems for a buzzard, for example, that fit the bill for a starter bird because they're big and robust. But often what happens is once they're trained, they're not as good. They're more of they eat a lot of carrion. So they're not they're not going to fulfill the spectacular flying, in most cases, spectacular flying and hunting. Because basically the reason I do falconry is not to fill my freezer with grouse or partridge or pheasants, because that's just not going to happen. But he's literally going back to that time at South Stack Lighthouse in Anglesey. It's very hard to watch a wild bird of prey hunt on a regular basis. So falconry to me is being able to witness that on a regular basis at a time when I can do it. So the hunting is part of it. It's what a bird needs to do. It's what a raptor needs to do. And I think if they're not flown and hunted, you're not fulfilling their needs. But the Harris hawk, and like the buzzard, it will be relatively easy to train with help. And you can't do it on your own. You need to ideally you join a club, you find someone who's going to take you under the wing, and you do it that way. But so I'd say Harris hawk's got to be top of my charts for first bird. I think there's red-tailed hawks, which are a North American buzzard. That's another one. I'd honestly stick with those two. Because you've just got a lot more leeway, and they will fulfill you. I mean, and they're very adaptable. That Harris hawk came to college with me. He spent a bit. He hung out in my room because you're a student. He hunt on the weekends on the farm. He was very adaptable. Whereas there's no way I could have had my peregrines in college with me and done them justice. Whereas you could, So Harris hawk I'd put top on my charts.
What about grey-chested eagle buzzard?
No.
No.
I mean, they're a lovely, but again, it's what to be honest, it comes down to what you want to do with them. It's what you, and a lot of it is to do them justice. You need to be able to hunt. You need to be able to fly them and hunt them in the situation that they would do in the wild. But saying that, if you can train a falcon to the lure, and that gives it its hunting outlet. So I think it's just a matter of finding what you got to look at what land you've got available, what time you've got available, and pick your species around that. And probably when I might go once. Well, I'm getting old now. I'm just on my 50th. So once you get, I'd like to think I'll be flying peregrines for a lot longer, but it may be that when it gets to the point where I can't get all over the place to Scotland and out east to the flatlands, it might be that I go back to my Harris hawks and sparrowhawks, because you can fly. That you've always got space. You've always got the quarry for it. So it depends on your situation.
Richard, a penultimate question. What would you say are the career openings with birds of prey nowadays, apart from sort of the highest level of being a bird of prey vet?
Yeah.
What would you say? Breeder, pest control, What else?
I think there's the breeding. There's a lot of falcons bred in the UK, mainly for the Arab market, and that because there's falcon racing in the Middle East is huge now, and so there's certainly. That's something. Yeah, so my bird of prey clients, that's probably are a mixture of bird breeders, individual falconers, pest control. That's another. There's because they're very effective at if and I used to do it myself. If you I have clients who fly falcons on tips where the gulls are a big problem. And I'm flying those a couple of times a week is a very effective way of keeping the site clear. There's a lot of bird of prey centres or centres as part of zoos. So yeah, I think it's not. And again, I think that as far as again that's a lifestyle choice as well. You probably yes. I think you've got to prepare yourself to enjoy your job and not be a millionaire. But that's fine. If I can fly my falcons and pay my mortgage, that'll do.
Richard, is there anything else you'd like to
add? If anyone's not seen Kes, they need to see it, because it is by far the best film ever made. And I suppose the only other thing is, I think, because I've come across it a lot, in that I've been told a lot that you can't do that. You can't do a bird course. You can't be a falconer. You can't be just a bird vet. And I get it. If someone gives me a good reason why I can't, fair enough. But unless someone gives you a good reason why you can't do something, do it anyway.
Dr. Richard Jones, thank you very much for being on the Practical Animal channel.
Cheers.
This is the Practical Animal interview.